Chapter 4 Getting Married. Take all of these things back. Emmanuel had Terence take everything back after hitching a ride. What? Terence wasn't the only one shocked by Emmanuel's demand, though. Alessandra and Rosalind were just as surprised as he was. These things are worth at least 10 million. Are you sure you don't want them? Terence asked again to make sure his ears weren't deceiving him. 10 million may be a small figure for me, but it should be an astronomical sum for this young man and his family. That's right, I don't want them. My late father taught me not to accept things I don't deserve. I can't be accepting such expensive gifts simply for helping you. Emmanuel replied firmly. Rosalind could only let out a helpless sigh when she saw how noble he was. Alessandra felt a little upset as she wondered when Emmanuel would be able to find himself a girlfriend and get married. Ha! Very well, then. Terence nodded excitedly and brought the gifts home. Fearing that Mackenzie wouldn't believe him, he even recorded the entire process and showed it to her as proof. Do you see that, Mackenzie? I told you that man would be able to pass the test. Now that you've lost the bet, it's time to honor your word and marry him. I want my grandchildren. Terence urged her. Although Mackenzie said nothing in response, she was not one to go back on her word. Since she had lost the bet with her grandfather, she decided to take care of things the next day. Otherwise, he would surely pester her about it every day. Emmanuel received a phone call from an unknown number very early the next day. Since you refused to accept my gifts yesterday, I have decided to introduce a potential wife to you instead. You wouldn't say no to this, would you, young man? This voice. It's the strange old man from yesterday. Hey, old man, are you some kind of scammer or something? Is this a new tactic to scam people out of their life savings? Emmanuel responded with a chuckle. Of course, he didn't actually think Terence was a scammer. He could tell from Terence's aura that the old man was incredibly wealthy. However, he couldn't seem to figure out why Terence chose him out of everyone else. Terence deliberately taunted him by saying, haha. Yes, I want to scam you into marrying a woman. What's the matter? Are you scared? What a coincidence. That's the only thing I'm not afraid of. Emmanuel replied seriously. Alessandra had been pestering him non-stop after his 18th matchmaking session ended in failure yesterday, so he was willing to marry any woman just to shut her up. Then head over to City Hall right now with all the relevant documents, Terence instructed. Fine. I'll go. I'm not afraid of getting married. With that in mind, Emmanuel did as told and headed over to City Hall with all the relevant documents. Terence had told him that the other party was a strong and capable professional in the corporate world, so Emmanuel did not have high hopes for her appearance. Being a gynecologist, he had gotten so used to seeing the female body that he didn't even care about her figure. All Emmanuel wanted was for her to have a decent character. At the very least, she would have to be better than Melanie. His jaw dropped in shock when he arrived at City Hall and saw the woman he was supposed to marry. What? Mackenzie. Her icy-cold aura and the red convertible she was in was a clear indicator that she was from a wealthy family. Despite how beautiful she looked, no guy dared hit on her because she was clearly out of their league. Well? What are you waiting for? Come on over. Mackenzie called out to him. Her gaze alone was enough to make Emmanuel comply obediently. That old man wasn't lying when he said she was a powerful woman in the corporate world. She has such an authoritative and domineering air about her. Ms. Quillen. Are you the one who wants to marry me? Emmanuel asked as he was still in disbelief. What, you don't want to marry me? Mackenzie retorted with a slight frown. Man, that icy-cold aura of hers sure is scary. I bet she's still single because most guys are intimidated by her. Of course I do. I wouldn't have come here otherwise. Emmanuel wasn't sure if he was excited or afraid of his situation. Mackenzie may be the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, but she seems a bit difficult to get along with. Oh, well. I just need to get married to shut my mother up, so it doesn't really matter if we get along or not. Then let's head inside and get this over with. Mackenzie said as she got out of the car and walked right into City Hall. Having gotten used to doing things by herself, she was all alone even when getting married. She was walking so fast that Emmanuel had to jog to keep up with her. Are you sure you don't want to reconsider this? It's not too late to change your mind, Mackenzie reminded him when they were about to get registered as a married couple. Since she didn't actually want to marry Emmanuel, she hoped that he would change his mind. That way, Terence would have no choice but to stop pressuring her. For someone with a cold personality, you sure are surprisingly hesitant and indecisive, Emmanuel replied with a nonchalant smile. The look in Mackenzie's eyes intensified when she heard that. Her gaze was so sharp that it was as though it could slice Emmanuel in half. You'd better not regret it, then. That was the final thing Mackenzie told him before they got married. 10 minutes later, the two of them walked out of City Hall with their marriage certificate in hand. Because Mackenzie had remained silent and maintained an icy-cold expression the entire time, the staff at the registration counter even wondered if they had come to the wrong counter. Are they here to get divorced or married? I'm only marrying you to fulfill a promise I made to my grandfather, so don't take this marriage too seriously. You can just carry on with your life, and I'll do the same on my end. I won't even care if you'll be sleeping around with other women, Mackenzie said coldly. Although a little hurt, Emmanuel couldn't help but smile in amusement when he heard that. Did Mackenzie get our roles mixed up or something? Usually, it's the job of the scumbag husband to say those lines to his wife. Oh, by the way, you mentioned that you haven't bought a house, right? Mackenzie asked all of a sudden. Yes, that's right, Emmanuel replied with a nod. Mackenzie then handed him a set of keys, much to his surprise. As the CEO of Terence Group, she had gotten used to being prepared. What's the meaning of this? Emmanuel asked. It's a patriarchal world that we live in, so women are expected to move in with their husbands. I refused to move into your house, so I got us our own place instead. You can stay there from now on, but keep in mind that I will hardly be around, Mackenzie replied with an expressionless look on her face. Is it just me, or am I being treated like a kept man? Emmanuel refused to accept the keys as his pride and honor would not let him do so. Take the keys. Mackenzie ordered coldly. That authoritative tone and penetrating gaze were all it took to make Emmanuel comply. As expected of a powerful executive in the corporate world. You just can't bring yourself to defy her. Emmanuel had no choice but to accept the keys. Fine. I suppose being a kept man is better than nothing. Since they were already married, getting into conflicts over such trivial matters would only make his life even more difficult. Goodbye. Mackenzie said as she got ready to leave. Wait up, Ms. Quillen. Emmanuel called out to her while grabbing her by the wrist. When Mackenzie turned around, however, her gaze was so intense that Emmanuel quickly let go of her hand. What else do you want? Mackenzie asked coldly. She disliked people, especially men, who were indecisive and complained a lot. There are 3 things that we need to make clear. It was said that married couples had a tendency to behave like each other. A bit of her personality was already rubbing off on Emmanuel as he said in a similarly professional tone, first of all, I will need your contact details. That way, I'll be able to call you whenever I need to. Just like how you married me to satisfy your grandfather, I'm also doing it to satisfy my mother. I'll have to be able to reach you in case she asks me about you, right? Despite Mackenzie's cold personality, she was still a reasonable person, so she agreed to his request. Here, you can reach me on WhatsApp. After saving her number, Emmanuel continued, second of all, I will pay you a sum of $5,000 every month. You may think of it as paying rent for the house or as me keeping my promise during our previous date. Mackenzie's lips curled into a disdainful smile when she heard that. Given the amount of money she had, 5,000 was a ridiculously small figure for her. Even so, she did not turn his offer down. Third of all, I want to know your plans regarding our life as a married couple, Emmanuel continued with a serious look on his face.